An environmental disaster is growing in the Gulf of Mexico off the Louisiana coast. Crude oil spewing from a leaky valve 5,000 feet below where a massive oil rig used to be, and it's spilling at the rate of 1,000 barrels, the equivalent of 42,000 gallons a day. The spill started a week ago, last Tuesday, when an oil rig called the Deepwater Horizon caught fire after an explosion that's still unexplained. The rig sank 2 days later. 11 crew members were missing after the explosion. They have not been found. They are presumed dead. The misery of the loss of those lives is now compounded by the environmental threat posed by the oil that's gushing out of the wellhead nearly a mile below the water's surface. The Coast Guard and the owners and lessees of the well, Transocean and the oil giant BP, are racing to try to contain the damage before it gets worse. Here's what the slick looks like from above. Those orange ribbons you're looking at, those are sweet crude oil. The slick now covers, apparently, an area slightly bigger than the state of West Virginia. And since the oil is actually spilling upwards from so far down from the seabed, it's impossible to tell how much water in the Gulf of Mexico has been contaminated. Here's a view of the slick from outer space, showing what all that oil is near. See that area along the Louisiana coast there? That's a wildlife sanctuary. But the danger isn't just to the animals and plants on the shore. The waters that have been fouled already by this slick are home to endangered and threatened species of sea turtles. There are also sperm whales and dolphins, porpoises, bluefin tuna, seabirds in that water. Today, the Coast Guard announced it may set all of that oil on fire tomorrow, reasoning that the danger from the foul smoke may be better for marine and animal life than the danger from the slick. Wow. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard has deployed 49 vessels to round up as much of the oily water as they can, while a mile down, underwater robots are trying to activate something called a blowout preventer, which is supposed to seal off a wellhead after an explosion, or maybe even to prevent one in the first place. The worst-case scenario here is that it could take 3 months to drill relief wells that would divert the oil flow into a storage facility. So at 1,000 barrels a day, the spill could amount to more than 4 million gallons of oil spilling into the Gulf of Mexico before all is said and done, which would be a little less than half of the amount of oil that spilled from the Exxon Valdez into Alaska's Prince William Sound 21 years ago. Joining us now is Commander Richard Schultz. He's the commanding officer of the U.S. Coast Guard Atlantic Strike Team. Thank you for your time tonight, Commander. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
First, what can you just tell us about the overall cleanup and containment effort? What's been tried and how successful efforts have been thus far?
Well, we've tried a number of different things to try to contain and mitigate the oil spill that's on the surface right now, as well as try to do some things that are below the surface, as you indicated, 5,000 some odd feet below the surface. We've done some chemical dispersant applications to try to disperse the amount of oil, break it up into smaller droplets so that it can naturally degrade into the ocean. And we've also done a lot of skimming operations, boats, vessels that are out there skimming the oil, removing the oil from the water, and then transferring it to some type of temporary storage for it to be brought to shore or recycled later on. And then we've also are toying around with or thinking about doing some on-water burning operations, as you mentioned.
In terms of the on-water burning operations, those sound incredibly environmentally risky, too. What's the thinking behind, I guess, the weighing out the lesser of evils here in terms of why you would set a slick on fire as a containment measure rather than continuing with skimming or some of the other options that you have?
Right. Well, there's always some trade-offs and risks that you need to think about, but we're not going to stop any of the other operations that are ongoing. We will still continue to perform vessel skimming operations to remove the oil from the surface. We will still continue to employ the chemical dispersant application to also limit the amount of oil or change the oil that's on the surface. In addition to trying to employ the on-water fire application. And really, we're not going to be lighting the whole entire slick on fire. We basically corral a portion of the oil away from the main slick, and that's what we try to burn not the entire slick itself.
How optimistic are you that the actual wellhead can be capped, that it can be stopped at the source? The thing that's, I think, very upsetting and sort of hard to get your head around about this is that this isn't a vessel. This isn't the Exxon Valdez. It isn't some sort of other vessel that has a finite amount of oil in it. This is a potentially infinite spill as long as that wellhead keeps spraying. How optimistic are you that it can be shut down?
Well, I mean, we're very optimistic that the wellhead can be shut down. That's why we continue to make efforts to shut that well in so that we can stop the flow of oil from that wellhead, or at least reduce the amount of flow. So every effort is being made to focus on that, as well as continue the oil removal operations on the surface.
Commander, I will say, as a person who doesn't know very much about this technology, what I'm worried about is that we've allowed the technology for drilling in very deep water to get ahead of the technology for dealing with safety issues in very deep water. Are some of the things that you're doing, especially trying to cap that wellhead, are these things that we have experience with in shallower water, that we haven't really tried them before in this deep water? Have our safety measures here not kept pace with our drilling technology?
Well, the Coast Guard, we're not experts on deep well drilling on the ocean floor, so I'd really have to turn that question over to the experts like BP and other oil exploration companies. But I do know that agencies as well as industry out there take every precaution and every safety measure in place. I mean, we value our workers and want to make sure that they're in a safe work environment and that they certainly stay safe while they're at work.
Commander Richard Schultz, Commanding Officer of the U.S. Coast Guard Atlantic Strike Team, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir, and good luck with this massive and incredibly important project.
Oh, you're welcome, Rachel. Thank you.
You can't see me right now. You can't see me. This see-through sheet renders me completely invisible. Therefore, this is not me on television hosting the Rachel Maddow Show. I'm not here. If you buy that, it's the same argument that the Republican National Committee is reportedly making and claiming that its latest fake census mailer is not illegal. As we reported last night, the RNC itself will not divulge the reasons why its legal department thinks its congressional district census mailer is okay, even though the Prevent Deceptive Census Lookalike Mailings Act was signed into law 5 days before this was postmarked, making it a crime for the U.S. Postal Service to deliver an envelope from a non-governmental entity that contained the word census on it, unless it also includes disclaimers that it's not a government document, and unless the envelope includes the name of the entity that sent the solicitation and an accurate return address. The new RNC mailer does not have a return address on the envelope or the name of the RNC. And it does have the word census on the front, right there, right before the address, where it says census document registered to. So how could this not violate the new law? Well, according to the spokesman for the Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, who is seeking to stop the RNC from sending out these fake census mailers, the RNC may be hanging their claim that it's legal on the fact that the new mailer doesn't say the word census on the outside of the envelope, which, according to Congressman Issa's spokesman, is required to trigger the law. Instead, the word census appears through the envelope's window. Like this, see? I am not a fake census form. There's no Rachel here. There's just this sheet of plexiglass. Because of that brilliant argument from the RNC, Darrell Issa is reportedly working on a new law to close the see-through window loophole. This, as Democratic Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and Congressman William Clay asked for and received an investigation by the Post Office, and as Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah pushed the RNC as well to stop these mailings. It took Michael Steele to actually bring about bipartisan agreement in Washington. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw fake censuses.